Within hours of June 24, 2025, hedge fund managers, private equity executives, and Wall Street bankers were coordinating around a single directive: anyone but Mamdani. A 33-year-old Democratic socialist had just defeated Andrew Cuomo for the Democratic mayoral nomination in a city whose economy rivals entire nations. The financial establishment was rattled. But to understand what shook them, you have to understand where Zohran Mamdani came from. Zohran Mamdani's story begins far from the boardrooms of Manhattan. Born in Kampala, Uganda in 1991, he is the son of Mahmoud Mamdani, a renowned academic, and Mira Nair, an internationally acclaimed filmmaker. The family left Uganda when Zohran was 7, settling in New York City, a city of both glittering wealth and deep inequality. While the Mamdanis lived comfortably, the realities of life in Queens exposed Zohran to the stark divide between privilege and poverty. His education followed a path shaped by global awareness. After attending the Bronx High School of Science, he graduated from Bowdoin College in 2014 with a degree in African Studies. But instead of heading straight into politics or the private sector, Mamdani chose a different route. He worked as a housing counselor in Queens, helping low-income tenants navigate the legal maze of eviction and foreclosure. For years, he sat across kitchen tables from families on the brink, filing paperwork, negotiating with landlords, and witnessing firsthand how policy decisions made in distant offices shaped the lives of New Yorkers struggling to stay in their homes. This ground-level experience became the bedrock of his political identity. By 2020, Mamdani entered the New York State Assembly, representing parts of Queens. He won re-election in 2022 and again in 2024, each time running on a message centered around housing justice and affordability. Throughout these campaigns, he built credibility not as a media invention, but as someone whose politics were forged in the daily grind of tenant advocacy. His mother, Mira Nair, often called him non-stop Mamdani, a nod to his relentless work ethic and refusal to slow down, even as his profile grew. This reputation, part social worker, part organizer, part political outsider, set the stage for a candidacy that would soon test the power of Wall Street and the city's political establishment. On June 24, 2025, New York City's political world was jolted by an outcome almost no one in the establishment saw coming. Zohran Mamdani, a 33-year-old state assemblyman with roots in grassroots tenant organizing, defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic mayoral primary. Polls leading up to the vote consistently favored Cuomo, a veteran of statewide politics, with a formidable donor base and deep institutional ties. Yet, as the certified results came in, Mamdani captured 50.4% of the vote, roughly 1 million ballots, while Cuomo trailed at 41.6%. Within hours, the Financial Times reported a swift, coordinated response among the city's financial elite. Hedge fund managers, private equity executives, lawyers, and bankers began strategizing under the banner of anyone but Mamdani. The phrase spread across trading floors and boardrooms, reflecting a rare moment of unity among Wall Street rivals. Their alarm was not just about ideology, it was about the scale of what was at stake. If New York City were a country, its economy would rank among the world's top 20, outpacing entire nations like Taiwan, Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, and Argentina. The mayor's office, in this context, wields global economic influence. The general election, set for November 4, 2025, became more than a contest for City Hall. It turned into a high-stakes battle over who controls the future of one of the world's economic powerhouses, a struggle between the momentum of a grassroots affordability campaign and the entrenched interests of the financial class. After the 2024 presidential election, Zohran Mamdani set out across the Bronx and Queens with a clipboard and a question: why had so many voters either backed Donald Trump or stayed home? In living rooms and on stoops, the answers came back with a clarity that cut through party lines. Residents spoke of a political establishment that seemed deaf to their struggles. They pointed to the Biden administration's handling of the Israel-Gaza war, but even more often, they described the relentless pressure of rising rents, grocery bills, and childcare costs. These conversations shaped the core of Mamdani's campaign, a disciplined focus on affordability that would become one of New York's largest grassroots movements since the Obama era, as described by journalist Benjamin Oreskes. Mamdani's policy blueprint read like a direct response to the stories he heard. At its heart was a rent freeze for regulated apartments, promising immediate relief for tenants facing double-digit increases. The platform called for raising the city's corporate tax rate from 7.5% to 11.5% and imposing a 2% surtax on incomes above $1 million. He proposed free city buses, expanded childcare, and city-run grocery stores to undercut food deserts and stabilize prices. Campaign materials claimed these measures could generate roughly $10 billion in new revenue, enough, Mamdani argued, to fund the expanded services without risking fiscal collapse. The campaign's language was blunt. It wasn't just about policy, it was about drawing a line between the lived experience of ordinary New Yorkers and the priorities of the city's financial elite. The affordability message became a rallying cry, transforming scattered frustration into organized political action. Volunteers fanned out in neighborhoods that had been written off by traditional campaigns, gathering personal stories and building a movement that threatened to upend the city's balance of power. For Mamdani, the path from kitchen table conversations to a citywide platform was not just strategic, it was personal, rooted in the same urgency he had encountered as a housing counselor. The result was a campaign that made the abstract math of city budgets feel immediate, tangible, and for many, worth fighting for. The rent freeze stood at the center of Mamdani's campaign, drawing both fierce support and deep skepticism. In the 1970s, economist Assar Lindbeck warned that rent control was, in his words, the most efficient technique presently known to destroy a city, except for bombing. That critique echoed through editorial pages and business roundtables as Mamdani's plan gained traction. Yet, Mamdani argued that without immediate relief, renters would never feel secure enough to back new housing in their neighborhoods. He pointed to evidence from Berlin, where a 2019 citywide rent cap left renters 37% more willing to support new construction compared to those without such protections. Mamdani's message then was not simply about freezing rents, but about buying time, creating the breathing room needed for both tenants and builders. Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader, saw the appeal in this focus on affordability, calling it broad enough to reach across the city's divides. The rent freeze became a test. Was it a necessary intervention or a gamble with New York's future? The answer, for many, depended on whether they trusted Mamdani's instincts or Lindbeck's warning. The moment Mamdani's candidacy became more than a protest, the city's donor class mobilized. Andrew Cuomo's campaign amassed over $40 million before the general election, much of it from large contributions and establishment networks. Mamdani's total never reached half that amount, built instead from thousands of small donors giving under $200 each. The imbalance was stark, but it was the scale of elite intervention that redefined the race. Bill Ackman, the hedge fund manager, issued warnings on television and in op-eds. If Mamdani won, New York would become more dangerous and economically weaker. He insisted there was no room for socialism in the country's financial capital. Ackman shifted his support between Cuomo and Eric Adams, ultimately delivering a $1 million donation in mid-October to a coalition whose sole purpose was to stop Mamdani. Michael Bloomberg, the city's former mayor, directed more than $13 million into pro-Cuomo attack ads, some attempting to link Mamdani to 9/11, a tactic that failed to move public opinion but underscored the fear among the city's power brokers. What began as a campaign about rent and wages transformed into a full-scale confrontation over who gets to shape New York's future. The money war was not just about defeating one candidate. It was a collective defense by the financial elite against a political threat they had rarely faced so directly. The city's economic establishment, for once, found itself on the defensive. Zohran Mamdani's stance on Israel and Gaza became a defining fault line in New York's political landscape. For years, he had criticized Israeli government policy under Benjamin Netanyahu, but as the Gaza conflict escalated, his language sharpened. He called the events in Gaza genocide, echoing the language of the International Criminal Court's 2024 arrest warrant for Netanyahu. In September 2024, Mamdani joined protesters outside the United Nations as Netanyahu addressed the General Assembly, making his opposition visible on the world stage. During a televised primary debate, when asked what country he would visit first as mayor, Mamdani replied he would stay in New York, refusing to name Israel and reaffirming his focus on the city's needs. He went further, pledging to have Netanyahu arrested in New York if the International Criminal Court warrant required it. Business leaders watched closely. Catherine Wild of the Partnership for New York City stated that the city's elite would judge Mamdani not only on taxes and cooperation, but also on his clarity regarding Israel. The boundaries between local affordability politics and global ideology had dissolved. For Mamdani, foreign policy was no longer a distant issue. It was inseparable from his prospects for governing New York. Winning a mayoral election in New York City is only the beginning. Every proposal to raise city taxes, from the corporate rate to the high-income surtax, requires approval from the New York State Senate and the governor. Governor Kathy Hochul has made her stance clear. She opposes new taxes, favoring spending cuts and warning that the state's fiscal room is limited. This places a powerful institutional barrier in front of Mamdani's entire affordability agenda. Yet the city's wealthy are not a monolith. Some high-net-worth New Yorkers have broken ranks, backing parts of Mamdani's program or supporting his broader call for economic fairness. The question of staying power, of whether a movement built in the streets can survive the realities of Albany, hangs over City Hall. Mira Nair's nickname for her son, Nonstop Mamdani, captures his relentless drive, but even that energy faces a test in the face of entrenched state power. Political strategist Ali Najmi points to Mamdani's warmth, charisma, and emotional intelligence, arguing that no amount of donor money could stop him at the ballot box. But governing is a different contest, one that will measure whether charisma and coalition can overcome the hard limits of New York's political machinery. Today, Wall Street's "anyone but Mamdani" refrain echoes across City Hall. Asar Lindbeck's rent control warnings and Bill Ackman's dire forecasts loom over every policy debate. The real test isn't how Mamdani won, but whether grassroots momentum can govern a city built on capital. The contest is far from settled.